So I want to talk about this thing that's been annoying me, and I call it self-marginalization. And there are two examples of it happening last night that are, I think pretty clear and prominent examples of what this thing is, what this phenomenon is. So let's dive into it. Now, Glenn Greenwald was proven pretty much 100% correct on the issue of Russiagate. And he decided, in response, he was invited on Fox News to discuss the findings, and he said, yeah, sure, why not? It's not like CNN or MSNBC is going to give me a platform to talk about this, and it's not like the people who were wrong are going to say, you know what, I was wrong, and here's an expert who got it right. So he decided he was going to take that opportunity to talk to millions of people by going on Fox News, specifically on Tucker Carlson's show. And you would think, the response on social media, you would think Glenn came out for pedophilia. Because all I saw was nothing but moral condemnation and excommunicating him and shaming him. At a time, again, mind you, where Glenn Greenwald was proven 100% correct. There was nothing but pure vitriol thrown his way because he dared to go on Fox News to talk about it. Now, some people even, went as far as to say, oh, love to own the libs by talking to a guy who just called Iraqis semi-literate primitive monkeys or something like that. And I honestly think points like that are so beyond hacky that I shouldn't even have to respond to them here. Obviously, Glenn Greenwald does not agree with the most fucked up things that Tucker Carlson has ever said because he agreed to come on his show to talk about a totally unrelated issue of Russiagate, which he was proven 100% correct. And I just find that a sleazy tactic of trying to, link Greenwald to the most fucked up shit Tucker said because he's daring to have a short conversation with him on a totally unrelated issue. But, put that aside. This is the problem of self-marginalization, where people on the left go, hey man, listen, we hate that person you're talking to is genuinely a shitty person, and therefore, if you associate with them, if you talk to them, if you communicate with them, you know what? You're just as bad too. And you're done. We've now pushed you aside, and you're canceled. And, that principle, I fundamentally disagree with. It's the exact same principle that made Republicans, and Hillary Clinton, by the way, say to Barack Obama when he said, I'll talk to Iran without preconditions. They accused him of being soft on terrorism. They accused him of being a naive idiot. They accused him of harboring sympathies to this insane, terrible, backwards government. It wasn't true then. It wasn't true when they attacked Obama for the same reason, for talking to the Cuban government. It's not true when people were attacking South Korea for wanting to talk to Kim Jong-un in North Korea to make peace. And it's also not true in regular political discourse when you have somebody who wants to talk to somebody from the other side who may actually be a horrendous person on an issue that's unrelated to that. Now, if they spoke about the issue of what Tucker said and Greenwald did not push back, well, that's a different issue, and I would 100% agree with the criticism of Greenwald on that front. But they didn't talk about that. They spoke about Russiagate. So it's a weird criticism, and also it denies a dynamic which is very real that many on the left give no credit to. And the dynamic I'm talking about is providing a gateway out of right-wing beliefs. So yes, I will concede that most of the people on Fox News are going to hear Glenn Greenwald talk, and they're not going to think like, oh, okay, he's a left-winger, and this is somebody on the left who got it right, so maybe the left isn't all bad. Most of the people who watch Fox News are probably going to be like, fuck the left anyway, and this guy's just telling me what I want to hear, which is good. But the reality is, there are some people who are going to watch Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson talk about that. And in their mind, they're thinking, Republicans are 100% right on Russiagate, Democrats are 100% wrong on Russiagate. But now Glenn Greenwald, a prominent leftist, talks and they go, that's weird. I thought all the lefties were going to be wrong on Russiagate. Turns out Greenwald is right. That's strange. Maybe he has principles, and maybe I should take a second look at some of his work and see what he's talking about. Oh, would you look at that? Here's Greenwald railing against the Iraq War and how terrible the Bush administration was. That's interesting. I never thought of that. Oh, shit. Next thing you know, they could be, stumbling across other lefties' work, and they find themselves agreeing with it. And I know that this is a dynamic because I've heard it myself. People have told me that I've provided a gateway for them out of right-wing beliefs. And the only way that you're going to provide that gateway is not by shunning and excommunicating and morally condemning The only way you're going to provide a gateway is by going into the lion's den and saying, hey, listen, I'm going to now debate and counter-argue and debunk what you're saying and making clear points, and then maybe you'll see the wisdom of some of my other views. And even in cases where you happen to talk about an issue where you agree, they could still get interested enough in your work and what you're saying to maybe look into other things you've said, and then they go, oh shit, I kind of like what this guy's saying, and next thing you know, they've deconverted from being a right-wing douche to having many left-wing views. Now, for me, I started getting these messages when I went on the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan's audience, it's a mix of people. It's probably overall right-leaning, but there are still plenty of lefties who watch it and like it. And I went on there, and I saw in the comment section, and I got comments sent to me afterwards where people said, oh shit, like I looked into your work after, and I was going down a bad path where I had been listening to fucking Stefan Molyneux and others, and I stumbled across your work, and I can safely say you provided a gateway for me out of right-wing views. Now, that story actually segues perfectly into the next thing that pissed me off, which is another example of self-marginalization, which happened yesterday, was Joe Rogan, who's been friends with Alex Jones since the 1990s, okay? And yes, Alex Jones is horrendously wrong about everything he says, and he's incredibly odious to the national dialogue, okay? That's clear. But Rogan's been friends with him since the 1990s. They recently made up, and Rogan went on Alex Jones' show, because I guess he's doing some shows in Austin, Texas. So he was on there, and then people were posting the screen grabs and also saying, you know, Rogan's part of the problem, Rogan is canceled. There were other people who were literally trying to say Rogan is somewhat responsible for suicide from a Sandy Hook parent, because that Sandy Hook parent did it on the same day that Rogan went on Jones, and he was one of the people who was suing Jones. Therefore, Rogan communicating with Jones means he's kind of responsible, and how dare he? In the reality, everybody knows Joe had no idea that that was happening. Joe had no idea that the guy probably did that, and also had no idea that he was one of the plaintiffs in the case against Alex Jones, and if you bring it up to Joe, I'm sure he would be mortified by this. So, but the point is, now, because Joe Rogan speaks to Alex Jones, by the way, he also speaks to Sam Harris, he also speaks to Jordan Peterson, people with beliefs that I think are totally wrong, and I debate him all day long on those beliefs, but because he speaks to those people, oh, well, now forget him too. He's excommunicated. He's to be shamed. He's to be morally condemned and pushed to the side. And listen, man, that's sloppy thinking. He also had on Abby Martin on his show. He also had me on his show. He also had Jimmy Dore on his show. He also had Andrew Yang on his show. He also had Tulsi Gabbard on his show. So should right-wingers look at Rogan when he has those people on and they go, fuck this guy, man. He's done. He's excommunicated. This is a childish way of thinking, man. In the real world, there are people who have shitty beliefs and odious beliefs. And to just excommunicate to make yourself feel better is preposterous. And you know what it reminds me of? Here's one of the final points I'll make on this. It reminds me of, remember when you used to take a math test and your teacher would say, you have to show your work. Like, what are you doing? Show your work. That's what this reminds me of. Because, okay, if you shame and condemn and excommunicate, what you're doing is say, you're an irredeemable deplorable, like Hillary said about many of Trump voters. But if you show your work and you say, hey, listen, Joe, I disagree with you massively on this, and here are the reasons why. Hey, listen, Glenn, I disagree with you massively on this, and here are the reasons why. If you show your work and you're making substantive rebuttals and debunking and counter-arguing, well then not only do I not disagree with you, I probably agree with you on many of your criticisms of Joe Rogan or even Glenn Greenwald. I have some disagreements with Glenn Greenwald. But there's this problem on social media where people are so insular in their own little tribal factions that all they want to do is like jerk each other off in their own corner about how right they are and how evil everybody is. And that's how we've gotten to the point where even somebody who you would agree with on most of the issues, you can find yourself saying stuff like, because of who they talk to, now they're part of the problem and they're excommunicated and they're to be shamed and morally condemned. And that's a problem. And you're actually only hurting yourself in that scenario. Because other people exist, other ideologies exist. There are nefarious actors out there, and we need to rebut them. We need to expand our sphere of influence, not shrink our sphere of influence. And in the case of a guy like Rogan, where yes, he has some genuinely shitty friends, and he talks to them, and that does give them more exposure. But if you take this approach of excommunication, then it's like, okay, look at it like, again, a math problem. So as of right now, you could say maybe 30% of his guests are left-leaning. Well, do you want 0% of his guests to be left-leaning? Do you want 10% of his guests to be left-leaning? Or would you rather have it more close to 50-50? Which, again, would require dialogue and would require debate and debunking and talking. And again, this isn't to say he's above criticism, because some people will inevitably come after me at that, oh my God, you have a soft spot for Rogan. Listen, go look at the podcast with him. Him and I debated on the issue of trans rights. Him and I debated on the issue of the voting age. There's plenty of issues where I disagree with Joe, and there's plenty of issues where I think his views are genuinely reactionary. And I'm willing to have those debates and those discussions. But that's just the point. I'm going to have those debates and discussions. I'm not going to shame. I'm not going to morally condemn. I'm not going to excommunicate. I'm not going to say you're part of the problem, whatever that means. And I'm not going to say because you have some friends who are odious and because you talk to those people, therefore, you're done. It's just so, it's really smug and it's really cheap. And it achieves absolutely nothing, and it only marginalizes yourself more and makes it seem like, oh my God, see, the left can't respond, the left can't discuss, the left can't debate. All they have is clutching their blanket and clutching their pearls and declaring everybody who's not already with them is canceled. And that's the end of the conversation to them. And I'm here to say, no, it needs to be the beginning of the conversation. And just because somebody talks to odious characters doesn't mean that therefore you lump them in with the bad actors, because that's a shortcut, that's a cheap way out, and it's only a way to try to make yourself feel morally superior by doing absolutely nothing. So again, you want to go after Tucker Carlson on specific beliefs? Welcome to the club. I have plenty of segments where I do exactly that. You want to go after Alex Jones for specific things. Are you fucking kidding me? I've deconverted more Alex Jones people than anybody because I always did specific segments going after him. That's all fine. You want to go after Joe Rogan or Glenn Greenwald for specific beliefs? Yes, do it. Go for it. But you have to debunk and counter-argue and debate, and you do not shame, morally condemn, and excommunicate. And maybe my views are shaped on this because there are people in my own family who are right-wing. So I know what it's like to you gotta live with it. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're not gonna talk to your family because, there's some of them are drunk on Fox News. Is that what you're gonna do? Okay, fine. You wanna do that? Fine. But you're not morally pure. That's not morally pure. That's like fundamentalist in a weird way. And also I have libertarian friends. That doesn't mean I secretly want to abolish the Department of Education and the FDA. And that doesn't mean like I'm a bad person if I engage with them. So, I'm trying to explain to people like we live in the real world. So to just shut everything down and say, you're part of the problem, you're part of the problem, everybody's part of the problem except the people who already agree with 100% of what I say. And even if you communicate with somebody, even if you agree with me 60, 70% of the time, but you communicate with people who massively disagree with me, well, what can I say? You're also excommunicated. At that point, you become the video randomly cut off there. But what I was going to say is, at that point, you become a caricature of what the right says the left is. And we are not that caricature. I don't believe we're that caricature. So, I don't know. I hope people will respond to this video rationally. I hope they see where I'm coming from. But if you don't, okay, it is what it is. I'm still going to engage with people who I disagree with on many things. And I think that that'll help spread our ideas. It doesn't hurt us in any way, shape, or form.